What is up, YouTube? It's Kingfisher745, and welcome back to another All Hail the King segment from podcasts past. Now this one's going to be a much simpler setup and shorter intro than before. Basically, you're going to hear another podcast segment from days long since gone, and in this one we're actually going to be talking about Iceman, a character that we don't speak about too often, and it's because he's in the bottom tier of heroes. But at least his horseman costume does offer something. In the podcast segment, we're going to talk about the Deathly Freeze Ray and basically setting up Chilled. It has to deal with Cold Snap, Deadly Crits, and exploits Chill. What we're going to try to do is maximize Iceman's usefulness. And really, this segment does a great job of explaining the entire thing. The only other things that I'm really going to address in the intro is first, we talked about how using a blaster would be a bad idea. And that speaks a lot to the meta. Tactician teams were everywhere, and I'm talking triple tacticians. So blasters were almost unusable. If you didn't have an exhaust, you probably weren't going to be viable. Especially not if you had an AoE attack. Then you would just give the entire enemy team a turn. Since the meta has greatly changed, it's actually a good idea to bring in a blaster. That's to deal with all the bruisers in defense. So that's one small change we're going to make. Another thing is we do now have the Windy E-ISO, so that really helps us out with Storm and with the build we initially talked about. After that, there's just some small tweaks with our agent setup, and we do now have a 5th action slot, so that helps out a lot. In the second team setup we talked about, we're going to have to go ahead and make a different video about that one. I actually do like the idea a lot. Especially since there's now the blessed A-ISO. So we are going to make a video on Emma Frost and Rescue, and we'll see if we can make an agent that's really hard to take out, especially with all the healing being generated. So yeah, that team up won't make it into this episode, but it's going to get its own video. That's really all there is to say in this intro. So as always, you're listening to a podcast segment from the past, one that you may not have even heard before. So let's check it out, and we'll see if that idea is still viable. P.S. by the way, I have to say it's not really that great, but we did face a few unique teams. So it worked out at least for today. Additionally, in the second match, if you're wondering why did I pick Agent Fitzsimmons, well, I just pick it random, unless I see a name I like, and I happen to love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So that's really the only reason I clicked on them. Now that really is all I have to say for now. So without further ado, here's the original podcast. What's going on, everybody? It's Kingfisher745, and this is the All Hail the King segment only on the From the Helicarrier podcast. For this week, I've had a few different ideas and I wasn't really sure what to go with, so I'm just going to speak my mind on a couple different things, and hopefully you find an idea you like. Alright, so this first team was something I was toying around with, and they're not exactly overpowered, but they are pretty cool. It happens to be an Iceman team up, and I just go with the Horseman of Death version. Blasters are kind of scary to use, so I pretty much lean towards the Bruiser. Now before I even mention his potential partners, I want to go ahead and tell you why I decided to use Iceman in the first place. As you may have noticed, one of the gold weapons for sale is called the Deathly Freeze Ray. This weapon is an AoE attack that causes chilled and brittle armor on all the opponents. It also causes Death Frost on your agent, so this goes perfectly with the signpost. When your agent has Death Frost and the signpost equipped, it grants a massive bonus to accuracy and doubles healing power. Then the signpost causes poison on your agent, and the freeze ray says when the agent has poison, it adds a chance to counter attacks and applies incapacitation on attacks. So there you have it, the fact that you can place chilled on all the enemies at once, and even on a counter attack, led us to Iceman, and more specifically the Horseman of Death. One of his passive abilities, Death and Taxes, will actually cause Death to have a chance to attack when an enemy with chilled attacks or is attacked. That in itself has some pretty good potential with this team. But then you also have an ability like Snowball's Chance, which has Cold Snap. Cold Snap says attacks against chilled targets are guaranteed to crit. So Snowball's Chance is a pretty nice ability for this team up, especially if you're getting free attacks with it from Death and Taxes. But now the question remains, who should we team Iceman up with? Well, there are a few characters that can add chilled with a Chaos Shot type of thing, or a similar effect, but that's certainly not reliable. So that kind of leaves us with Nico, who can apply chilled with freeze, or the character that I really want to use, and that's Storm. I actually think Storm, especially with their Windy and Powered ISO 8, would be an excellent team up. Windy and Powered ISO 8 grants Protective Shroud to your entire team at the start of combat. It also will allow Storm to use her Blizzard ability first thing, rather than have to cast Protective Shroud. And Blizzard is a catastrophic ability that can't be protected against, ignores most avoidance effects, and is guaranteed to hit. Plus it causes chilled on all the enemies. And if that's not enough, her level 9 ability Tornado actually exploits chilled. The big problem for me is I do not have the Windy and Powered ISO 8. So I'm going to be working on getting this, and hopefully I do in time for the video. If so, the team up is going to be a Bruiser and Powered Costume Agent, a Bruiser Horseman of Death, and Storm in her classic Tactician costume. For my weapon setup, I'm going with the Deathly Freeze Ray, the Signpost, the Orfrost Mace, and I was considering the Freezer, but I may just use the Synthetic Cube. So that's it for that first fun team up. Another thing that I was working on revolves around the Deathly Freeze Ray and the Signpost once again. This time, however, I want to throw in the Staff of Asclepios. The staff has a big heal, and then it also has Blessed Renewal, so it restores health over time. But the thing that had me really interested in this combination was Blessing, so it increases the effect of healing received. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to really have an effect in addition to Dark Bargain. But what I did find was my agent was pretty difficult to kill. He was healing back to full health practically every turn, using the Signpost every turn, plus the staff when it was off of cooldown. Not to mention its hot, or heal over time effect, kept my agent regenning so much health that it was difficult for anyone to take him out. So this got me thinking, who should I use him with? And of course Emma Frost and Volstagg would be a pretty good team up. Another possibility could be someone like Rescue and Emma, or even Angel in one of those two. Even Red Hulk could be pretty annoying on a team like this. So yeah, this is certainly something to toy around with, and anyone who's difficult to kill could be quite a nuisance. I'm probably going to give Emma and Rescue a try, and then I'll show that in the video as well. And you could even go triple Tactician setup with those two, and that means you could throw on the Asgardian Tankard for extra turns and extra annoyance. As far as damage for that team, Emma Frost is pretty much it. But if you have the maddening augmented ISO, with Weak Mind plus Mental Anguish, what more do you need? Now that's pretty much it for today's segment, but make sure you check out the channel to see all of this in use in the current PvP season. Lastly, I want to thank you all for listening, and then send it back to the hosts.